Serious, what is an open secret in your industry, profession or similar group, which is almost completely unknown to the general public? Soldier here. Everyone knows that the government wastes money, but you have no idea how much the army will spend on a vehicle that will quite possibly never get used. If you ever drive on a base and see the lineup of heavy armored vehicles that look brand new, it's because they probably haven't moved since they got them. Turn it off and on again isn't some kind of comedy gag at your expense. It really does solve 90% plus of all known home user IT problems. Construction workers do not toot at women. We lift stuff a lot and eat in sadness. Retail worker. If something isn't on the shelf, unless it's on ad or there's a special coupon for it, there's a 90% chance that we don't have any in the back. And if you ask us to look in the back, there's an 80% chance that we'll go back there, stand around, bullet with other co-workers for a few minutes, only to come back out and say OMG I'm so sorry but we're completely out of that. I work in engineering and the phrase it's not perfect but we gotta ship something out next week is said for just about everything at some point. Don't buy the first revision of anything. I used to work for a magazine years ago and I used to write the advice column, which was funny enough since I was about 23 and had zero qualifications to be giving anyone any advice about anything, but what makes it even funnier, to me, is that I also wrote the letters asking for advice. Who has a problem and sits around thinking, I know, I will write a letter to some magazine and ask them for help? The answer is no one. Surgeon here. All surgeons make mistakes while operating. Any surgeon who doesn't is either not operating enough or lying. That there's a startling number lawyers who are absolutely, totally incompetent. I mean drug and alcohol addicted and or barely literate incompetent. Courts don't call them to account, and often tacitly cover up for them. Lawyers have to screw up spectacularly and repeatedly to get disbarred. Corporate accountant. The amount of control I have over how much money the company makes or loses on paper is huge. A bad accountant says 2 + 2 is 5, a good accountant says 2 + 2 = 4, and a great accountant asks what you want 2 + 2 to equal. You'll never get told a nurse is monitoring your breathing. I could be pretending to take your pulse again or something else distracting. But if you know I'm monitoring your breathing, you'll breathe differently. Librarian here. 99% of the time your late fines can be waived, but only 1, if our boss isn't around, and 2, you're nice to us and don't abuse the privilege. I was an aviation electrician for 10 years. All it takes to cause a catastrophic failure in an aircraft is a piece of debris smaller than a penny. There's a reason that people from the aviation industry tend to be absolutely anal retentive when it comes to tools and machine cleanliness. Cartoonist here. It doesn't matter that we make kids shows, we are crude, vulgar jackasses. Not that this is secret, but people don't know, I'm a social worker, on Long Island. Why? One of the most expensive places to live in the USA. Guess what we generously, compared to a number of states, give to welfare recipients? Food stamps, a max of $180 per month. Public assistance, $150 month. Rental assistance, unchanged since 1976, $450 month. Family, a single room apartment around here goes for at least $1,200. BTW, that's it. That's all. I can't stand people complaining about people getting rich off welfare. Honestly, anyone who puts tons of effort into defrauding the system isn't gonna get much. Teacher here. It always surprises people that 90% of my job has nothing to do with kids and more to do with paperwork and dealing with other bureaucratic crap. Seriously considering leaving the profession because after several years of teaching, I can say that that part of the job gets worse each year. Those guys that do the speed paintings in front of large audiences of the entire thing drawn out, they always paint on a dark canvas and then lightly sketch out the main areas. If you get close you can see the faint marks. All the way out in the audience it just looks like a black canvas. It's still a pretty neat trick to do it that fast. Thrift store worker here. No, we don't wash everything before we put it out. People think we have massive industrial washers in the back. Nope. Gaff tape fixes everything. Electrical tape and duct tape just have more exposure. When you call me for help with your software, I'm probably just going to Google the answer, and you think I'm a genius. I'm a nurse. We give morphine to dying patients more or less as assisted suicide. There's too much work, and not enough people to do it. Our pay attracts a lot of apathetic people, making it difficult to get good work out of them. Quality workers see the workload and move on after a year. Funny thing is, if we had more quality workers, it would be an easy ducking job with decent salary for the responsibility. State Gov't agency. Corrections officer here. The worst COs are the ones you see in movies, TV shows, the big, juiced up roid monkeys that bully inmates all day long or are pricks because they get off on it. They will heat up a unit resulting in ducking headaches for their co-workers and are hated more so by fellow COs than inmates themselves. The best are the ones that are emotionally mature, thick-skinned, temper-controlled who can talk to an inmate first and active, keyword, if they have to do so. In other words, they have respect from inmates because of that, which will defuse a situation before any words are said. Being physically built has little to do with anything, but respect will go 100 miles and another if needed. I'm a 150-pound guy with glasses who reads comic books and plays video games on his days off, who gets called Harry Potter by inmates but unable to tell someone to lock up while looking them in the eyes, and passed my physical training with flying colors. Oh. And talking about comic book movies with fellow nerds in prison is a highlight of my job. Ingredient and nutritional statements on food are wildly inaccurate. Aside from demands by third-party auditors which can be skirted, the FDA doesn't have the resources to verify the accuracy of most nutritional and ingredient statements. Instead, they rely on the honor system. Pilots really don't care about your connection, and getting in on time is secondary next to safety. They're just concerned about getting there safely. If there's weather, something not right, etc., will rather delay the flight and fix it than try to get there on time and risk the lives of everyone on board just so you can make your business meeting, or so you can catch your connecting flight to Hawaii. True, no one likes delays, and we're suffering as much as you are. But I'll take a delay rather than being in the air and wishing I'd given the time to fix the issue. A lot of criminal defendants come into the public defender's office thinking they'll receive quality personal assistance, when in fact, the system is overloaded and the attorneys are just trying to sort through cases as quickly as possible. The defense, district attorney, and judge are in constant contact with each other to make the process go as fast as possible. All those TV shows that dramatize rivalry in the courtroom are exaggerating. Defense attorneys and prosecutors are usually very friendly with each other because of all the time they spend collaborating. I work in the support section for a very well-known build-your-own site provider connected with a very popular website platform. 95% of the questions I see from users, I get the answers for those users from the customer-facing documentation. It's less that I don't know the answers. I rarely ever don't. But when you see the same 5 questions 50x a day, it's just easier to copy and paste the already user-friendly answer than to write a new one every time. We exist. Seriously. I work for a supplemental insurance company. Most people have no clue that we are an option, and major medical companies like it that way. This is very regional, but here in southwestern Ontario, there is a home builder company called Empire. Right now they're building in Binbrook and Brantford. The houses are 2-year-old houses with foundations cracked, shingles on the roof needing replacing, and driveways sunk where you park. Drywallers often aren't given enough drywall, so they get the tapers to tape huge sections of the house, and the mudders to mud over the tape and they call it drywall. The trusses they use to actually build the place are left out in the rain and snow. If you book a rental car and are going to return it to a different location, you're getting the ittiest car on the lot. Pilot. We talk about women when flying, and about flying when with women. If we're talking about flying when flying, start worrying. Well, even in fast food, they have stickers you need to put on the produce to make sure they're fresh. Haven't stood outside refrigeration for too many hours. The meat burgers have a time limit on how long after being flame grilled they can be saved kept warm. Oil needs to be changed every X time. You need to wash your hands regularly to handle the food. There are special tongs for meat, others for non-meat, etc. I mean, nobody's hiding it, but it's like that's a huge shock to people, unless it's magically changed since I left the industry. Everything computer is insecure and accessible with not a whole lot of effort. I'm a chemist with a biochemistry background. This isn't exactly related to my career, but a gluten-free diet does absolutely nothing for you unless you have celiac disease gluten allergy. The only reason people on a gluten-free diet see any benefit is because they are usually eating healthy regardless of whether or not they consume gluten. Stories about actors ad-libbing things are often made up. Surprisingly little changes on the fly. Directors do a lot less on a film set than you think. It takes a long time to make a movie. When celebrities are nice to you, it is often because they're trying to keep up a certain image. They are bombarded constantly by every Tom, Dick and Jerry, many of which barely know who the celebrity is. There are, of course, some notable exceptions, and many celebrities are perfectly nice people. I don't know. There's probably a list a mile long. Emergency department doctor. We're remarkably good actors. We're often pretty scared of screwing up. We just hide it well. A little fear is important. Makes you remember that someone's life is at stake if we get things wrong. Referring to other specialties is all confidence. Give exactly the same information and confidently ask them to take over care, and it'll work 10 times more often than a jumbled, groveling story. When you start talking about your pets, your family members, or giving a lengthy account of an ultimately irrelevant and unrelated medical procedure you had 25 years ago, I'm not listening. I'm working out what's wrong with you and planning how to treat it. Yet somehow I always get good feedback on my empathy. We manage to keep a straight face for the time wasters. We've often not eaten, drank, urinated, or even sat down for the last 10 hours. And we're often guilt-tripped into being at work despite having minor illnesses. It takes a lot of effort to pretend to care about your ingrowing toenail, or your cold you've decided needs emergency antibiotics. Roadie here. Most people assume roadies are dumbass stoners living the life on the road, getting chicks for the band etc. But in reality a good chunk of them are technically trained, audio, lighting, theater etc. professionals who work locally only, and may never see that band again after the one gig. As a live audio engineer, most of the work available to me is poorly paid pub gigs, anywhere from $15 HR to $35 HR. If I'm lucky, as a roadie, I get from $30 HR to $50 HR, and at times that's just to push road cases about. I'll still do live engineering for its and giggles, or for certain companies that I like working with, for less money at times. TLDR. The guy pushing cases out of a semi can probably set it up and run the gear, but is getting paid more not to. Gas station attendant here. If the temperature outside is above freezing, the windshield washing fluid with the squidgies is just water. There are a lot of really bad programmers out there. Security is one of the least understood facets of software. I work in marketing and search engine optimization. Everything you pay us to do you can do yourself for free. YouTube can teach you every facet of the industry in a few days if you're willing to take the time to learn. Any product you buy from a hairdresser in a salon is almost certainly 100% markup from the original price. We buy a $5 product. You get charged $10 or even $15 for shampoo, conditioner, etc. This is commonly accepted practice in salon industries. Oh, and that hair color you paid $100 for your stylist to do, other than her time and skills. Hair color costs the stylist about $7 to do your hair. Cheaper if you're getting just highlights. I work in the beer draft beverage industry. Depending on where you live in the country, you might be appalled at how many of your favorite drinking spots have never cleaned or changed their beer lines in the 5, 10, 20 years they've been open and pouring from the same draft system. I have pulled stuff out of beer lines that would probably make you gag. Some states actually regulate it as a part of the state health code, which they totally should. This is food we're talking about here, but many states do not, and thus a vast majority of restaurants and bars in those states do not to clean them, either out of ignorance that bacteria, biofilm, beer stone, and yeast build up over time and affect the taste and pour of the beer. or simply because they see pouring out beer to run cleaning solution through the lines as wasteful. The irony of that is that it is far more wasteful to have a dirty beer line than it is to clean one. Dirty lines foam up because agitation occurs when the beer runs over that gunky stuff. So, next time you are at your favorite drinking spot that has a draft system, ask the bartender when the last time the lines were cleaned. If she says what, or I am not sure, don't drink from that system. All companies that service beer lines keep logs with the bars restaurants they clean. How much gaming is done with regards to TripAdvisor and other review sites? From offering customers discounts if they upload a favorable review to posting fake disparaging reviews for competitors or having friends family whomever write fake positive reviews. There are a lot of ways to game the system, but more so, the average person doesn't realize how challenging it is to get a phony review taken off your TripAdvisor page. And it's not unheard of. Luckily I've never had this issue, for customers to threaten a negative review if you don't side with them in an argument. That's not to say TripAdvisor isn't valuable. It's very valuable, and when I go on vacation I absolutely check the reviews for hotels, restaurants, less so for restaurants as I tend to just find places on the go, activity vendors and so on. But I am more likely to be able to read between the lines and gauge which reviews are sincere and which have another story behind the scenes.